And welcome back. It's now 9 minutes away from 7 o'clock. And as promised before the break, we're sitting down to talk about the Jasmine alert. And joining us is the Deputy Officer in charge of the Eastern Division, Senior Superintendent Edward Broster. And we also have Women's Corporal Hortense Hernandez of Community Police, who also has responsibility for the Jasmine alert. Good morning.
Morning.
And welcome to the show. Now, let's start off by just looking at what has quite a number of families worried at this point. Allegations that in the north, in Belize City as well, there have been some allegations of kidnappings, attempted kidnappings of children. So let's talk about how the police actually deals with these reports in the first place.
Well, first off, when we receive a report, we have to treat that report as factual. I believe that because of the reports that came out of Orange Walk, parents and teachers were warning their children to be on the lookout and be on the alert. And due to the fact that we have couple white vans in Belize City that picks up children from schools, I think this report emanated last week, where it was alleged that someone abducted 3 female and a male child. We treated it as serious as possible, and we expended all our resources to search the entire city and beyond our judicial district, our boundaries. And we did a parallel investigation as well, and we later found out that it was not the case as was reported.
How do you deal with getting word out in a case such as that, because the rumors became so rampant that people were deciding to actually keep their children home? So how do you actually get information out to let people know that it's not true, and that they can, live normally but still be cautious with their children?
Well, what we did the next day was to tell the press brief that we did and put the advisory and let the public know that they shouldn't be afraid, but on the cautionary side, we should all look out and be proactive in looking out for any suspicious individuals or vehicles that may want to interfere with our children.
What happens at that point in terms of the Jasmine alert, when you initially have the report and you're not sure how factual it is, but you have to take it seriously?
When it comes to the Jasmine alert side, first we will do just as any other runaway report. We have to do some initial investigation. What we need parents or guardians to know that if you have the slightest doubt in your mind that your child was abducted or kidnapped, to immediately go to the nearest police station and make a report. So while that report is in process, the police will look at all pros and cons at the possibility that this child may have been a victim of abduction. So if evidence leads that this child have been abducted, then immediately we will get in contact. We'll get the information, withdraw just a little bit of information about this child: age, height, apparent weight of the child, the complexion, facial features, and we need a photograph of the child. So when we obtain those information, automatically and immediately we send that information off to BTL and SMART. And those two of those phone companies then send out SMS messages to all subscribers to those companies, but in pockets. The BTL and SMART cannot send SMS about this child to the entire country. So they will do it in small packages to different locations of Belize City. If they believe it's in Queen Square area, well, that is the area that will immediately get those text messages. So it is imperative, and I always will repeat it, it is imperative that parents try as much as possible to take recent photograph of their child or their children.
And these days with technology, it's more than possible. But I want to bring it back to the major point here. Two issues. One, we're looking at how missing persons reports are handled. And secondly, the level of communication, especially in this particular case, where there were allegations made in Orange Walk and also in Corozal that something suspicious is taking place. So what is the level of coordination that takes place? Is PG, for example, also educating their communities because there has been this report?
Well, one of the things that transpired is the fact that while these reports are made that someone may have attempted to abduct a child or so forth, you know, with social media, this is the medium for which information is shared rapidly throughout the country, and others tend to put on the story and inflate the story to a level where everybody gets panicky. Countrywide, we always advise the community how to be careful and what to do, and I'm sure that commanders countrywide have been advising their community to look out and be prepared, and in taking care of our children because of the report that was coming out of the north. So
is there a direct communication, for example, to say this allegation or this report was made that there was an attempted abduction by a white van or white Prado or whatever type of vehicle? Is that communicated with the rest of the offices? Because, I mean, anybody can travel within a couple hours in Belize.
Right, and that is key, because we have to coordinate with each other in order to apprehend any suspect or suspected vehicle that is being used in such incident. So yes, it is communicated to commanders throughout the country.
Now, my next question was with the missing person report, because we've often heard parents say, or persons say, they go to the police station and they tell them, and we don't know if they actually go, so we do have to say that. But when they would come to the media, they say, well, I went and they told me we have to wait 48 hours. Is that still the case? No. Or is it dependent on the individual situation?
It's not the case. We've learned our lessons over the years as with respect to that 48 hours waiting period. The policy now is do search immediately, do investigation immediately.
Okay.
So, well, I could only concur with what Mr. Brasser said. Yes, we do heard people say that, oh, the police say I need to wait 24 hours. That is not so.
Yeah.
If you believe that, even for as simple as it may sound, run away. You believe that your child ran away from home, you don't know what danger your child went into. So you immediately go to the nearest police station and make a report so police can start the process of looking for your child. As I said, even if it is a runaway. And we know we do have quite a few runaways, you know, the same person doing the same thing repetitively. Yeah. But at some point in time, that may change from a runaway to an abduction. And we don't want to wait for that to happen. We need to stop it from the child. We believe that this child ran away from home.
It's a catch-22. If the child ran away 5 times, we're going to do the same investigation 5 times to ensure that it's a runaway and it's not anything other than a runaway.
At one time, when you had a child who may have proven to be a little bit difficult for the parents to handle and would keep running away, you'd have had them perhaps at the youth hostel or something of that nature. What happens now if you have a repeat offender when it comes to running away?
Well, I would still encourage the parents, after hearing, you know, the entire history of this child behavior, because there will have to be a behavioral pattern. So I would encourage children, you're saying that you cannot control your child, then seek further assistance. I oftentimes would refer them to do counseling at the community rehabilitation office, or refer them to family court. They are the ones who need to take the initiative to get further help for their child. Yes, you can say, okay, let's have my child place at the youth hostel, but is this really solving the behavioral problem that my child have? So we need to start having them do some counseling.
And sometimes they're running away from something at
Yes.
home. We do have to be very honest about that. Now, I think one of the things that Belizeans have become very wary of has been the number of U.S. fugitives with sexual misconduct, particularly found in Belize. And I think one of the things that people are beginning to realize is that we are not isolated. We are not without having Belizeans ourselves or other persons coming into this country with pedophilic tendencies. So how do you work to educate parents? I know you sent out the release on how to ensure or protect your child from abductions. Because it hasn't been as frequent in Belize, we can be a bit lax. So how do you re-educate the community that even though it may not happen every week, it doesn't mean it's never going to happen?
Well, I believe that parents should be able to inform themselves by way of browsing the net with news regarding that topic. But I think that the Belize Police Department have had a close working relationship with other international police agencies through our Interpol. And if you would recall, I think it was about a year and a half or thereabout ago, when a pedophile boarded a flight from Miami to come to Belize and he was arrested before he came. That's the kind of level of cooperation and that we've been sharing with our counterparts. And when we do have them in Belize, we normally get the list of pedophiles or warrants of wanted persons or bulletins of wanted persons, and we are very cognizant of being on the lookout for them, hence the reason you've seen a lot of extradition to the U.S.
To add on, excuse me, to add on to what Mr. Brasher just said, Mr. Brasher is speaking about families and parents who do have access to internet. Let's say the regular man that do not have access to internet, you need to start teaching a child to be more alert. Alert about your surrounding. If you're going to catch a taxi to go to school, before you catch that taxi, make sure, it's very, very basic, you do not enter a taxi that is tinted. We know that there is a law against tinted taxis, but make sure you don't enter a taxi that is tinted. Okay, and you did the right thing. The taxi was not tinted. Write down this license plate before you enter this taxi. And we know that a lot of teenagers going to high school, they have splendid memory. So memorize that taxi license plate. These are things that can help you. We know even though that they said you can't take your cell phone to school, they still take their cell phone to school, so you can immediately dial that number into your phone and it will be saved. That is for persons going to high school. Don't jump into a taxi with other persons in that taxi. We have seen movies, yes, there are movies, but it relates to the same thing. You pull with somebody and you're in danger of getting harmed. For normal primary schoolers, we know that majority of the schools, if not all, in Belize City have school wardens. The school wardens are placed there for a specific reason. Parents, if we have a lot of single parents, but if you can't pick up your child from school, have a designated person to pick up your child. Have your child memorize his or her address, phone numbers, things like those. And if it happens that you see a vehicle persistently following you, divert that street. Someone said to me over the weekend, but my child, he walks the street, that vehicle don't go down. If somebody really want to abduct a child, do you think they would follow all the rules? They would not. When they would not want to bring attention to themselves, if they see a suspect and they really want to get this child or children, they will do what they want to do. So we parents need to be more alert and teach our children how to be alert.
I think that this report last week is a clear example of children listening to teachers and parents in reporting suspicious activity. And also the fact that we've had several reports that a car pull up beside a young person and try to talk to them and entice them to get in the car, and they haven't got in the car, and we haven't had an incident that a child has been abducted, speaks well to the level of education that has been going on in the country.
Very, very often now we have quite a number of children, some even younger, closer to 5, who go to school unaccompanied. And that's a huge challenge and walk the streets. And of course, traditionally, people would have advised them, or neighbors or friends or even adults who may not know them. How do you interact with families who may be faced with that situation where, as you said, maybe they're single-parent households and the children do go to and from school unaccompanied?
Well, that's a very difficult thing to accomplish. But what I can say is the fact that given the level of police presence that we have on our city streets, it is real difficult for something of that sort to occur.
No, I think that's an important point, because we do, and I think obviously the police department may know to look out for things like that, and hopefully human development would get involved in terms of what is in the best interest of the child. But looking at this specific issue of children being on the street unattended, specifically when it's nighttime. Once upon a time, we used to have the curfew, and we knew that you couldn't be out after a certain hour, and it was heavily enforced. But what is the practice when you do see children wandering unattended, well, even if it's early night? Is there something that the police will be able to step in and say, well, where are you? Where are you going? What are you doing out here? Or do you leave them alone?
We have encouraged our patrols to pick them up and take them to their home of abode and find out what's the problem with the parent, why the child is out on the street.
Yeah.
And we have had several cases of that.
What is usually the issue when you take them home? Are the parents aware that they're out?
Normally the parents are aware that they're out, and the parents claim that it's difficult to control them and so forth.
In this particular issue, there are two things. There are children who are allowed to do essentially what they want to do, and then there are also the issue where sometimes the parents could be single parents, they could be working, sometimes they have an expectation that the children will stay home, but it's not the case. Do you find it easy to work with parents to understand that no matter what the circumstances, it is their responsibility to protect?
You would find it that the homes that have delinquent behavior are the hardest home to work with.
Yeah. Definitely.
Sometimes you would have parents working, and they would say, well, my child is not there not to leave the home at night. So this child would leave out without the parent having any knowledge, and the parent would then chastise his or her child for their behavior. But for the ones the parents there at home, and like Mr. Brasa said, oh, I can't control my child. So, and why the police are getting in my business? They have other things where they need to do other than getting in my business. So that we encounter a lot of that. Go find the man who killed the man, instead of this is the issue. No, your child is at this age and roaming the street without a parent or a guardian. And
some in the society do not realize that the lack of social control from the home leads to the level of violence and hostility that we experience in the streets in our communities.
Yeah. Now how do you work with your community policing unit to try and get more families to be aware of the small things that can be done to better protect children in particular?
Well, I know that for community policing, we have what we call the PCPEP. So police officers will go into the school and do small lectures on present topics, things that is affecting community here and now. I also know that Sergeant Carcom, a person in charge of community policing, last week went out and visited as much school as they could have. I don't know if he was setting up meeting, but to reaffirm, have the principals and administration reaffirm their parents of, safety tips in protecting their children.
Now, the issue here is, abduction is one of the worst case scenarios. But you also have children who are unattended or left to wander, who can also be at risk of being abused. And also even just being caught in some of the late night gang activity that we see as well. There seems to be sometimes, and with this particular issue, that there's a bit of naivety in terms of what can actually take place. We know the police department obviously has some training in terms of understanding the profile of abductors and predators and how they try to get children engaged. What are some of the things that you think you need to tell parents about who these people can be?
That again is difficult to develop a profile on a child predator, and you're well versed with international media with reports that the neighbor abduct the child, like in the case of the two girls, that they were held for 18 years.
Yeah.
The guy was going to church. He was
Living
doing everything right
yeah.
in the community. Nobody suspected him to be a child predator. So that's very difficult. The best thing for you to teach your child is not to go with anyone and to do certain tips like what Ms. Hernandez was mentioning earlier.
Child abductors are like domestic violence. You do not have a face, you do not have an ethnicity, you do not have a financial status. They're there to gain something, and they would do whatever it takes to get what they want. Like one person had said, the person was giving out sweet. We don't know if that is true, but that is another way to lure the victim. So the parents, the teachers, they need to tell their child these things. Don't take if somebody is giving you. Don't go if they're encouraging you. I didn't send anybody to pick you up in a vehicle, so don't go. You're going to buy lunch. Don't go with anybody. Go with who you set out to go with. I'm going to buy lunch. I can take you. Don't go. Because we know that this happened. A lot of our children go and buy lunch 12 o'clock or whatever time is that break period. Don't have an adult or anybody accompany you. Go with your brother or your sister or who you set out to go out with from school.
About 2 months ago, I was driving and I noticed some kids were going to school and I recognized the uniform. And I said, they're going to be very late. So I stopped to offer them a ride to school and they refused. And that's the kind of thing that we want to teach our children, right?
That they won't jump into the car of a stranger.
Even with someone in a police uniform.
Well, I wasn't in uniform.
Okay.
Oh, okay. No, but it is, and that's why I say we are very naive about things like that. I know in some areas they encourage families to have passwords, that this is the password. If I send somebody for you, they must tell you this word so that you know that I have authorized them. So there are many little things that you can come up with, but sweets are one way of luring people. Money, food, even puppies, using dogs or animals to be able, anything that will attract children.
But, and what Marlene said just now has triggered something in my mind's eye, because there's an increase in children on the streets begging. You go to restaurants, they're right outside. They don't want necessarily the money, the ATMs. They don't want the food, they want the money, kind of situation. So how is community policing, or how do you deal with that particular issue when it is becoming so prevalent?
I think that as a community, some of us, or most of us in Belize, have compassion. And I think that in exuding that compassion, we tend to want to give to the children. And when we do that, we compound the problem. I would advise people not to give to children, because there are some parents too who realize that the child can make more money going to beg than what they would make working. So I would encourage the community not to give to children like that out in the streets. If you want to do something for that child, find out where they live, then you go visit that home and see what's the condition with the parents, and you can take whatever you want to take to the home, but not on the street, because when you do it on the street, you encourage them to come out more.
And to add on to what Mr. Brass has just said, the community members need to play more role in this by calling 911 and report it.
So if you see a child out at night begging?
Not only night. Not only night.
Anytime you see a child begging, you can call and report them?
From Monday to Friday between the time of 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., where does a child belong?
In school.
Exactly. Yes. So automatically something wrong there. Why is this child not in school? Yeah. So our truancy officers likewise need to get out more often and walk the areas, because we all know the areas where we get reports of child, begging for monies. So, and find out what is the issue home, why this child is not in school. Yeah. Yes, the police would go pick up the children, take them back home and ask the mom, why is your child not going to school? Well, we don't have anything to eat.
There was this one little fella who used to go to the tourist village to beg. And we picked him up and we took him home, and we found out that he was living with his grandmother, and same problem, didn't have anything to eat and stuff like that. So there was arrangement made with an organization where he goes there between 12 and 1 to have lunch. And after that, you never saw him out there. He started dressing better. He attended school and his grades improved significantly. It's simple little things like that that as a community we need to take charge of.
It seems to be coming back essentially to having the community involvement in this process. We know that, because we didn't get a chance to talk about it, the Jasmine alert is being reinstituted at this point, because at one point it wasn't being used?
Jasmine alert have always been used. It's just that we don't use it if it's not the case of a child abduction.
Suspected, yeah.
Yes, we don't use for runaways, for suspected, we don't. Because just imagine the chaos it would happen in this country if we would put out a Jasmine alert for a child who ran away from home.
How often do you get missing reports for children?
Well, that I can't get the statistics.
Yeah.
But based from what I read, sometimes you have probably would get up to 2 per week. Some week you wouldn't get, but maybe you'd get around 8, 10 per month.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are they, and how much are usually resolved?
The children, they always return home. Remember, they run away. So if we believe, as the case of the young lady last week, you believe where this child went. So a message is sent to that district, and that district then start looking for that child, and you then get a radio message back to say that, yes, this child is here. Yeah. So either the police would bring the child to Belize City, or to take the child to the respective district, or ask the parent to go and pick up your child, whichever one is more feasible at that time.
So we need to wrap this segment, but what do you advise people to do when you have a situation like we had last week with numerous rumors and reports or allegations of children being abducted or threatened?
I think parents just need to reiterate to their children not to go with any stranger, and if anyone try to grab them or hold them, scream down the place. Someone will hear. I mean, this is the time when a lot of people is moving about, when children are going to school, so it is very difficult for someone to abduct a child, whether they're going to school or coming from school.
Just before we wrap up this, in terms of the information received, is there any reason for the police to believe that there really is a person in a white vehicle attempting to abduct children?
The reports have been coming persistent from the north, and we are on the lookout for the descriptive vehicle and individuals that have been coming out of these reports. And this is countrywide.
Okay. So people still need to be on the alert as
Yes,
well throughout the week, throughout the year. But
we have to always be on our alert for our children and look out for our children.
I wouldn't use the word alert, but I would use the word more cautious. People need to be more cautious in your everyday activity when it comes to your child. Just to jack back a little bit to something you said before, little children going to school and the parent is a single parent working, try and find a bigger child to accompany your child to school. Somebody must be going to your child's school that you know that are bigger than your child. Have the child go with your
Or a neighbor.
Yes. That is solved so easily than just two little boys or a little girl and a little boy walking to school or somebody just single-handedly.
Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back to continue our conversation with our two representatives. But this time we'll be switching to another new initiative, and this is called the Black Campaign. We'll be right back after these messages.